to what my father used to call bricks and mortar religion, and I wouldn't give what the way I see the world a name. But there is so much in religious texts, which are ancient texts that are recalling and recording things that went on a long time ago, which are actually telling the very story that I'm telling here. But they don't. People don't see that connection. Once you read the stories from the point of view of what's happening now, it all starts to make sense. The reason these people don't act like what we would call humans, these bloodlines, these networks of evil, is because they're not like us. They don't see the world like us. If we could just see the world through their eyes for 5 minutes, the whole world and everything that happens in it would suddenly fall into place. We'd go, oh, I see it now. That's why this is going on. And so it's, the idea that within this narrow band, this ridiculously narrow band of frequency scientists call visible light, that we can know everything, whether it's mainstream or alternative or whatever, is a form of extreme ignorance as well as a form of extreme arrogance. Thus, whatever we know is what we know now or think we do. There's always vastly more to know. And if the alternative media comes to a certain list of conclusions and stops and won't go any further, then they're not going to get to that point where we go beyond the movie screen that we see to the projector that's projecting the movie.
Well, David Icke, here's what I know. What the globalist is doing, well, what we can prove is so over the top, and I want to keep you a little bit longer if you can do it to finish up and talk about what you got coming up next, that the sky is already the limit. And I want to talk about, I want to discuss with you some of those things we know are going on that are crazy, and then ask you where you think it's all going. David Icke, davidicke.com. And he puts off a really good vibe. I think David Icke means what he's saying. I think he is very eccentric, and I mean that in a good way. And I think in my gut, I know, it's very healthy to just completely go a trillion miles out from this, to look at it from way far back and then come back and look at it real close. Because I look at this world, and let me tell you, folks, we're not in Kansas anymore. And I can't get the public to just admit what's real. I mean, what's admitted in the 5 senses. And then I just pick up well, I see the trail of destruction behind the globalists, but then I pick up on the way they act, the way they behave. And I've been around a lot of their minions, and it's like their minions aren't even really alive until they're doing something bad, and then they kind of activate and manifest. And I bet it's even wilder than what David Icke's saying. I mean, my gut more and more, and it's never been wrong, just tells me that we're in the middle of something so fantastic. He'll be with us at 20 after. This is a short segment. David, how is the fight going against the psychopaths and their group consciousness, if you look at it from an atheist perspective or, from any other perspective, regardless, this is going on. How is the fight going for human consciousness? Because they're really pouring it on right now to suppress people awakening. And I think this was what you said 15 years ago is true. I see this year and next year, the next few years, as a critical time.
Yeah, it is. Because in the end, it's a choice. People say, how will it turn out? Well, it depends on the choices that are being made. What you will see now, Alex, is something I've been talking about for a long time, and what we now see. I was reading an article today which was basically asking the question, what the heck is happening to the human race? Some of these extraordinary things going on with people biting people's faces off and stuff like that it was talking about. Well, going back to what I've been talking about here, the awakening is the awakening to harmony. It's the awakening to balance. And the more you awaken to that, the more you open your mind and expand your mind, the more you start to see the world in a greater and greater way in terms of seeing what's really happening, as opposed to what is supposed to be happening and we're told is happening. People start to see things. And what do they say? They say, why didn't I see it before? It's so obvious. Because your mind was closed before, and thus when it was closed, it was picking up a certain band of perception. And now you are expanding your mind and literally opening your mind to a greater possibility. Now you're picking up a much wider frequency of insight, of possibility. Thus, you're seeing things differently. But on the other side, what we're seeing is people that are getting pulled more and more into this inversion, becoming more and more an expression of that inversion. So we're seeing, people read my books from 10, 15 years ago, or 15 years ago, they'll say I was talking about the fork in the road, the parting of the ways. And we're seeing it. Those that are awakening to a greater understanding of the world, and those who are getting more and more pulled into it. And maybe next time I come on, Alex, we can relate what I've said here to the transhumanist agenda.
Let's do that when we come back. We've got 12 minutes when we come back. Let's just do a preview. If you want to come back soon, we'd love to have you. DavidIcke.com. Tell us about some of your new speaking engagements coming up. People can find all that at DavidIcke.com. I'm Alex Jones of Infowars.com. But we're looking at the big picture here today, pulling back and getting David Icke's perspective on the world. And I'll tell you this, it's a lot more accurate than what we're getting from people like, Piers Morgan. And do a whole breakdown. I know he does like 12-hour, 10-hour seminars to thousands, tens of thousands, in some cases around the world. And I think it's healthy because people need to break with the system. I mean, everything they do is about lying and hoaxing and deceiving. And, David, you were talking about the fork in the road. People are either really waking up or they're going deep into the mind control. Diabetes is up several %,000% in the U.S., spreading into Europe. I know it's not supposedly transmittable, but the point is the things we're having put in our food and water are that help trigger it. We've got so much happening. We've got cancer exploding. We've got just all forms of evil intensifying. We've got in the media and the culture just selling the most horrible things, and where torturers of children are actually the good guys. You can see the inverse taking action. And you can't just chalk it up to deviance or to decadent societies going into decline. This is a manifestation of evil. And the churches won't fight it. They're busy glitterbugging and, teaching magical thinking to people that, they'll tell God what to do and all this bizarreness. What is it all headed towards, David? And are we winning as free humanity? I mean, if this was a soccer game, a football game, where are we?
Well, having just passed the point of 25 years on this journey, and looking what it was like then to what it is now in terms of people being aware that the world's not like they thought it was, well, I mean, we have made the most fantastic strides, the most fantastic achievement in what we've managed to do so far. But where's it leading? I mean, because everything connects to everything else, everything you say comes in and connects somewhere. So, I've been having a chat today to a friend of mine who has studied DNA and seen DNA in various studies it's been involved in. And what he was saying is DNA is definitely getting weaker, and it's definitely mutating. Something's going on at that level big time. I was reading a story, it was on my website, and probably others too, I think it was yesterday, where a scientific study, mainstream, has looked at the DNA of the poor, the urban poor as they call them, in Detroit, and found that DNA is being fundamentally affected to the point where it is reducing more and more significantly the length of life of those people. This all fits. Why? Because DNA and RNA, which is fundamentally connected, are receiver transmitters of information. That's what they are. They receive and transmit.
And they're being told to die. They're being told to turn off.
Yeah. Well, what I'll give you an example of what I mean. A Russian scientific study changed frog embryos to salamander embryos by broadcasting the information of the salamander embryo to the frog embryo and transformed it, right? Now, why can they do that? Because DNA is a receiver-transmitter of information. And I said before, everything is a frequency. So, healthy food, healthy organic food, clean water is a frequency. Polluted water, I mean, hello, genetically modified food is another frequency. And so when we are eating food or drinking whatever, or when we sit in school all day in Wi-Fi fields of radiation, when we are increasingly having our atmosphere transformed in terms of its radiation content on a fantastic scale, we are seeing that. We're seeing food as in the holographic level as something on the plate, but in its base form, it is an information field, and that distorted information field we call the rubbish food that we get, and the polluted water, etc., and the Wi-Fi fields, is interacting with the DNA, and it is changing it. What is a distorted information field going to do to another information field that's receiving it? It's going to distort it, and that's what's happening.
Let me stop you, because while you're speaking, they're Googling and putting up mainline prestigious universities admitting that our DNA is unraveling, degenerating, our sperm count's down almost 90%. They're admitting that they can charge DNA with the program sequence of another animal, and it will actually imprint that. So it's documented, and they know they're doing it. And you wrote about this 20 years ago, and now they're just now admitting it. They are purposefully reprogramming us to turn us into abominations. I mean, this is sick. I mean, if I was a foreign alien force, this is how I'd take over.
Here's Alex, that these ancient, endless stories all over the ancient world of the gods interbreeding with humans and transforming the human form. Well, if you understand how DNA works, you don't have to mutate the species and change the species by sexual procreation. I mean, how long would that take? You can do it by transmitting the information of the form you want to turn us into to the DNA on its frequency, and as it receives it, it will mutate in accordance with that information.
Sure, your DNA is a wireless receiver, and there's real Wi-Fi. That's why they can plug wires into people's brains now and make them stop having epilepsy. We are literally being programmed.
Yeah, and this is where the transhumanist agenda comes in. I mean, engineered wars, engineered financial crashes, all these things are absolutely vital to know about. They're absolutely vital to circulate and explain. But beyond that, the biggest agenda of all is the transhumanist agenda, because I've talked about the fact that this is a biological computer. They want to put technological computer software into the biological computer so that they can control it and control its perceptions and feed its perceptions on a level that we've not even seen so far. We talk about smart meters, smart TVs, smartphones, smart in front of all these new technologies. Everything with smart in front of it is designed to speak and communicate with everything else with smart in front of it. And thus, what they're creating is a sub-reality, an energetic sub-reality within a certain frequency band, the frequency band of human brainwave activity. And the idea is that they connect. If they can get technology inside of humans, the connection will be obviously technology to technology. They will connect the human mind, the human perception processes to this smart grid.
Sure, it's artificial telepathy, and it's funny you say that. We were, Google last year declassified from their own corporate records their own founding meeting 16 years ago, where they had the billionaire investors. They go, why do we need other search engines? They said, it's not that. Everyone's going to feed the reality into us. We're going to have an AI that's a mass hive consciousness tied into